Imagine a day so hot the air shimmers like a mirage. The sun blazing down on the ancient sands of Egypt. Beneath the towering Great Pyramid, where shadows stretch long and deep. Dr. Alex Carter, an archaeologist hardened by 2 decades of chasing lost secrets, steps into the unknown. With a small team trailing behind, they descend into the earth, their boots crunching against dust undisturbed for centuries. The tunnels below twist like veins of some forgotten creature. Narrow and suffocating, the walls pressing in as if guarding a truth too vast to be told. They're hunting for buried treasures. Perhaps a pharaoh's resting place cloaked in gold. But fate has something darker in store. As they squeeze through a tight passage, the stone around them groans, crumbling under their touch like it's alive, whispering warnings in a language lost to time. Then it begins, a sound. Faint at first, a low hum that creeps up from the depths. It's not the wind or the shifting sands above. No, this is something else, something unnatural. A vibration that slithers through the ground, alive and restless, as if the pyramid itself is waking from a long, uneasy sleep. Dr. Carter pauses, their breath catching, heart thumping loud in the stillness. The hum grows, threading through the air like a thread of invisible energy, pulling them deeper into the shadows. With every step, the darkness thickens, their flickering flashlights barely piercing the gloom. The passage ends abruptly, and they break through a fragile wall of stone into a hidden chamber, a place untouched by light or time. The air shifts, turning cold and heavy, as if it's been trapped here since the stars were young. A shiver runs through the team, but Dr. Carter stands firm, eyes wide with awe and dread. The walls rise high around them, etched with carvings that defy understanding. These aren't the familiar tales of gods and kings. No golden ankhs or lotus flowers here. Instead, jagged hieroglyphs twist into strange shapes, clusters of stars, sharp geometric lines, and symbols that pulse faintly, as if glowing beneath the dust. The carvings stretch across the chamber like a map of some distant cosmos. Their edges worn but alive with purpose. Star patterns gleam in the dim light, Orion's belt, unmistakable, staring down from the stone like eyes in the night. Other shapes defy explanation. Spirals that seem to move when you look away. Lines that bend into impossible angles. The hum swells here, resonating from the walls, a sound so deep it rattles their bones and buzzes in their teeth. Dr. Carter reaches out, fingers trembling, brushing the cold stone. It feels alive, charged with an energy that doesn't belong to this world. This isn't a tomb, not a resting place for the dead. The air hums with secrets too ancient, too vast to be human. Something has been waiting here, locked beneath the pyramid for thousands of years, hidden from the sun and the sky. The team stands frozen, dwarfed by the weight of what they've uncovered. Dr. Carter's mind races. Years of digging through sand and ruins couldn't prepare them for this. The chamber feels like a doorway, a threshold to something beyond history, beyond Earth itself. And that hum, it's no accident. It's a signal, a call from the shadows of time, whispering of things that should have stayed buried. The sun dips low over the Egyptian desert, casting long shadows that creep across the sands like fingers of some unseen hand. At a dusty camp nestled near the base of the Great Pyramid, Dr. Alex Carter and their mentor, Professor Grant Lewis, huddle inside a weathered tent. The air inside is thick with the scent of old canvas and the faint tang of ancient stone dust still clinging to their clothes. On a rickety table, they spread out photographs of the chamber's carvings, blurry images snapped in haste. Glowing faintly under the dim lantern light, each picture holds a piece of a story so strange, so wild, it feels like a dream pulled from the edge of nightmare. The symbols in the photos aren't the comforting tales of pharaohs or golden gods that Dr. Carter knows so well. No, these are something else, etched whispers of beings called the Watchers. The hieroglyphs weave a tale of visitors who descended from the stars. Their origins tied to the cold, bright belt of Orion hanging high above the world. These weren't myths or legends spun by priests, they were real. Flesh and shadow beings who walked the earth long before the first stone of the pyramid was laid. The carvings claim they gifted the Egyptians secrets, knowledge so vast it reshaped the desert into towering signals reaching for the heavens. Not tombs for the dead, but beacons, alive with purpose, humming with a power no one dared name. Dr. Carter's hands tremble as they trace the jagged lines on the photos. Fingers brushing over words that seem to pulse beneath the paper. The carvings speak of more than gifts, they carry a warning. Sharp and cold as a blade in the dark. The stars will return to take what is theirs. The words hang in the tent like a curse. Heavy and unyielding, promising something vast and unstoppable. Professor Lewis, a man of steady hands and sharper skepticism, sits across the table, his face drained of color. His eyes, usually bright with doubt, flicker with a fear he can't hide. He stares at the images as if they're staring back, peeling away the layers of everything he thought he knew. The lantern flickers, casting shadows that dance across the tent walls like specters of the past. Professor Lewis leans closer to the photos, his breath shallow, as if the weight of the truth is pressing down on his chest. He doesn't speak, but Dr. Carter can feel it. This isn't just another theory to dismiss with a laugh. The Watchers, the pyramids, Orion's silent gaze, it's all connected. A thread stretching back through time to a moment when the sky touched the earth. The air grows colder, though the desert night outside is still and warm. Something shifts in the silence. A presence unseen but undeniable. As if the stars themselves are listening. Late that night, under a sky pierced by countless lights, the camp falls quiet, too quiet. Professor Lewis steps outside, his shadow swallowed by the dark. Moments later, a sharp cry cuts through the stillness. Then nothing. Dr. Carter rushes out, finding him crumpled on the sand, lifeless, his face frozen in a look of shock or terror. The official word comes fast, a heart attack. Sudden and unexplained, but Dr. Carter stands over the body, staring at the clear, untroubled sky, and feels a chill that has nothing to do with the desert wind. A healthy man one moment, gone the next, no warning, no reason. It doesn't add up. Back in the tent, alone now, Dr. Carter pores over the photos again. The lanterns glow flickering like a dying star. The carvings seem sharper now. The warning louder in their mind. Someone, or something, doesn't want this secret to breathe in the open air. The shadows outside the tent stretch longer, darker, as if they're alive, watching, waiting. Dr. Carter's pulse quickens, a gnawing certainty taking root. Professor Lewis didn't just die. He was silenced, and whatever took him is still out there, circling closer, guarding a truth buried too deep to stay hidden forever. A few days have passed since the shadows claimed Professor Lewis, and now the bustling streets of Cairo hum with a different kind of life. Dr. Alex Carter retreats to a tiny apartment tucked away in a narrow alley. A place where the city's chaos barely reaches. But tonight, that sanctuary lies in ruins. The door hangs ajar, creaking faintly in the warm breeze. And inside, chaos reigns. Papers strewn across the floor like fallen leaves. Drawers torn open as if clawed by desperate hands. Books toppled into heaps of forgotten knowledge. In the center of the mess, a single note rests on the table. Its words scrawled in harsh, black ink. Stop digging. The message sits there like a threat carved from the void, silent but alive with menace. Dr. Carter steps into the wreckage, their breath catching at the sight. The air feels wrong, too still, too heavy, as if something unseen lingers in the corners. That eerie hum, the one from the pyramid's depths, follows them even here. It's faint, a ghostly murmur weaving through the city's distant horns and shouts. But it's always there now, a shadow they can't outrun. It pulses faintly, like a heartbeat buried beneath the floorboards. A sound that doesn't belong in this world of dust and noise. Dr. Carter's hands sift through the scattered papers, searching for answers, until they uncover something hidden, a scrap of paper tucked inside a torn notebook. Scribbled in Professor Lewis' shaky hand. The words are brief but piercing. The truth is in the stars. Check the coordinates. Below them, a string of numbers points to a desolate spot deep in the Sahara. A place swallowed by sand and silence. The discovery sends a jolt through Dr. Carter. A mix of dread and purpose igniting in their chest. The coordinates glow in their mind like a beacon, calling them away from the city's crumbling walls and into the unknown. But as they stand there, clutching the note, the shadows outside begin to shift. Through the cracked window, strange figures appear, men in black suits. Their faces obscured by the night. They linger on street corners, motionless as statues, their presence chilling against the warm Cairo air. One stands beneath a flickering street lamp, its light catching the edge of a pale, unblinking eye. Another waits near the alley's mouth, a silhouette so still it might be carved from stone. They don't speak, don't move closer, but their silence screams louder than any threat. The hum grows sharper now, buzzing in Dr. Carter's chest like a swarm of unseen insects. A sound that seems to rise with the stranger's gaze. It's no longer just an echo from the pyramid, it's a signal. A call or a curse, tugging at their very bones. Dr. Carter's pulse races, their hands moving fast as they grab a worn backpack from the floor. They stuff it with whatever remains, crumpled photos of the carvings. The professor's note, a flashlight that flickers weakly. Each item feels heavier than it should, as if the weight of the truth is sinking into the fabric. The apartment grows darker, the shadows stretching longer, curling around the edges of the room like fingers reaching from some unseen abyss. With the bag slung over their shoulder, Dr. Carter slips out the back door, the night swallowing them whole. The alley outside is a maze of tight walls and forgotten trash. The air thick with the scent of spice and decay. Their footsteps echo softly, each one a dare against the silence. The men in black suits don't follow, at least not yet, but their presence lingers. A pressure at the edge of every glance. The hum swells louder still, vibrating through the cobblestones, a rhythm that matches the pounding of Dr. Carter's heart. It's calling them forward, pulling them toward the desert's endless sands, or warning them to turn back while they still can. The city fades behind them, its lights dimming into the haze. But the shadows of Cairo cling tight, whispering of secrets too dangerous to ignore. The Sahara Desert unfurls before Dr. Alex Carter like a sea of golden fire. Its dunes rising and falling in endless waves under a sky so clear it burns. The sun hangs high, a relentless hammer pounding down heat that shimmers in the air, turning the horizon into a trembling illusion. Behind the wheel of an old, battered Jeep, Dr. Carter races across this desolate expanse, the engine growling as it fights through the shifting sands. They're chasing those cryptic coordinates from Professor Lewis' note, a thread of hope stitched into the vast emptiness. The desert stretches on forever, a silent kingdom of dust and secrets, its surface unbroken, its depths hiding truths older than the pyramids themselves. The Jeep lurches over a dune, tires clawing at the sand, kicking up plumes that swirl like spirits rising from the earth. Dr. Carter grips the wheel tight, their eyes fixed on the endless stretch ahead. Every jolt of the vehicle a reminder of the danger left behind in Cairo. But the desert's stillness shatters without warning. From the haze, black SUVs emerge, sleek, predatory shapes cutting through the dust like shadows given form. Their engines roar, a deep, guttural sound that echoes across the dunes. And clouds of sand billow in their wake. Dark and choking, Dr. Carter's heart leaps. The Syndicate, those faceless keepers of buried truths, have found them. The hunters are fast, closing the gap with a precision that feels almost inhuman. The chase erupts into chaos, the Jeep swerving wildly as Dr. Carter pushes it to its limits. Tires spin, spitting sand in furious arcs, the vehicle tilting dangerously with every sharp turn. The SUVs weave closer, their black hulls glinting like the shells of giant beetles under the merciless sun. The air grows thick with dust, a gritty fog that stings the eyes and clogs the lungs. But Dr. Carter doesn't slow. Behind them, the Syndicate's machines press on, relentless, their engines a chorus of menace that drowns out the desert silence. The hum from the pyramid returns now, faint at first, threading through the noise, a spectral whisper rising from the sand itself. As if the earth knows what's coming. Ahead, through the swirling haze, something breaks the monotony of the dunes, a rusty metal hatch. Half buried, its edges jagged and worn, protruding from the sand like the tip of a forgotten blade. Dr. Carter's breath catches. It's no coincidence. This must be the place the coordinates promised. The Jeep screeches to a halt, tires digging deep gouges into the dune, and Dr. Carter leaps out, boots sinking into the hot, shifting ground. They stumble toward the hatch, hands clawing at its rusted surface, prying it open with a groan that echoes like a cry from the deep. The SUVs screech to a stop behind them, doors flying open, but Dr. Carter doesn't look back. They dive into the opening, the hatch slamming shut with a hollow clang. sealing them in darkness as the Syndicate's shadows loom above. Inside, the world shifts. The air turns cold and damp, a stark contrast to the furnace of the desert above. Dr. Carter lands hard on a metal floor, the impact jarring through their bones. The darkness is absolute, swallowing every trace of light. But the hum is here, louder now. No longer a whisper but a roar that shakes the walls around them. It pulses through the unseen space, a living sound, deep and resonant, rattling the very air they breathe. The walls tremble faintly, as if something massive stirs beneath the sand. Awakened by their presence, Dr. Carter crouches in the black, pulse racing, the hum filling their chest like a second heartbeat. Whatever lies below, it's been waiting, and it knows they're here. Dr. Alex Carter plunges into the abyss beneath the desert hatch, their bodies striking a cold, unyielding floor with a dull thud that echoes into the void. They rise slowly, breath fogging in the icy air, and find themselves in a chamber unlike anything born of Earth. The walls curve upward, smooth and metallic, forged from a substance that gleams faintly under a strange, unearthly blue glow. The light seems to seep from nowhere and everywhere, bathing the space in a sheen that shifts like liquid shadow. The air hums with a weight that presses against their skin, a chill that sinks deep into their bones, as if this place has been sealed away from time itself, waiting in silence for an intruder bold enough to cross its threshold. In the heart of the vault, something defies the laws of the world above. A glowing orb hovers, suspended in the air without chains or supports, its surface rippling with a light that pulses like the beat of a living heart. It's no mere object, it feels alive, radiating a power that thrums through the floor, a vibration so deep it rattles the dust clinging to Dr. Carter's clothes. The hum, that relentless echo from the pyramid, pours from the orb now, no longer a whisper but a chorus of unseen voices. Ancient and restless, the sound weaves through the chamber, bouncing off the metal walls, filling the space with a presence that's both everywhere and nowhere, as if the orb itself is watching, waiting. Footsteps break the spell, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the hum like a blade through silk. Dr. Carter turns, their body tensing, as a figure emerges from the shadows at the chamber's edge. He's an old man, his face etched with lines like the cracks of a weathered stone. His eyes sharp and glinting with a cold, unyielding clarity. This is no ordinary stranger. He carries the weight of secrets older than the sands above. The leader of the Syndicate, those keepers of truths too vast for human hands. He doesn't move to strike, doesn't raise a weapon. He simply stands there, his gaze piercing through Dr. Carter, calm as a still sea hiding monsters beneath its surface. Dr. Carter freezes, caught in the pull of those eyes, as the Syndicate leader begins to unveil a tale that chills the air even further. His presence alone speaks of authority. But it's his words, delivered in a silence only Dr. Carter can feel, that unravel the mystery of the orb. This glowing sphere, he reveals, is a fragment of the Watcher's power, a relic left behind by beings who once walked among humanity's dawn. The pyramids, towering above in the desert, were no tombs for kings, they were guardians, built to shield this unearthly force from prying eyes. For centuries, the Syndicate has stood watch, preserving it in this hidden vault, their purpose shrouded in shadow, their vigil unbroken as they await the return of those who forged it. The orb flares suddenly, its light surging bright enough to cast jagged shadows across the walls. The hum rises with it, a deafening wave that shakes the chamber. And within that glow, visions flicker, brief, haunting glimpses of massive ships drifting through the black of space. Their hulls are dark and vast, cutting through the stars like silent predators, their course set unmistakably for Earth. Dr. Carter's breath catches, their mind reeling at the sight, as the Syndicate leader's lips curl into a smirk, faint, cold, and knowing. Judgment is coming, he implies without a word, a reckoning woven into the fabric of the stars themselves. The Watchers are returning, and nothing, not the Syndicate, not Dr. Carter, not the world above, can halt their approach. The chamber grows colder still, the blue glow deepening as the orb's pulse quickens, its light dancing across the metal like a storm trapped in glass. The Syndicate leader stands unmoved, a sentinel of this alien legacy, his smirk a promise of secrets yet untold. Dr. Carter's hands clench, their body rooted to the spot, caught between awe and dread. The hum fills their chest now. A sound that feels like a call from beyond the grave, or beyond the stars. This vault, this orb, this moment, it's the edge of something vast. Something that's been stirring in the dark for millennia. And Dr. Carter has just stepped into its heart. The stillness of the alien vault shatters in an instant, torn apart by a piercing wail that erupts from unseen corners. Alarms scream through the metal chamber, their shrieks sharp and relentless, slicing through the air like the cries of a wounded beast. The glowing orb at the center trembles, its once steady pulse faltering. And then, with a sound like glass breaking across centuries, a jagged crack splits its surface. Light pours forth, not gentle or warm, but wild and blinding, a flood of radiance that spills across the floor like liquid fire. It washes over the walls, casting shadows that twist and writhe as if alive, turning the vault into a cauldron of chaos and unearthly power. The Syndicate leader, that cold sentinel of secrets, loses his icy grip on calm. His face contorts, eyes widening with a flicker of panic as the light sears the chamber. His voice rises, a sharp bark cutting through the din, calling for guards who storm in from the shadows, boots pounding. Weapons glinting faintly in the orb's glow. But Dr. Alex Carter doesn't wait to see their next move. Their body surges with instinct, legs pumping as they bolt toward the darkness beyond the light. The vault groans around them, a deep, guttural sound rising from its metal bones, as if the very structure is stirring from a slumber too long endured. Awakened by the orb's shattering cry, the halls twist and turn ahead, a labyrinth of cold steel and flickering gloom. Dr. Carter races through them, heart hammering against their ribs like a trapped bird desperate for freedom. The air grows thick with the screech of bending metal, pipes overhead buckle and snap, raining sparks that flare bright and die fast, scattering across the floor like fallen stars. The walls shudder, trembling with a force that seems alive, hungry, as if the vault itself is fighting to contain the power unleashed within. The hum, once a steady whisper, explodes into a roar, a deafening, wild surge that fills the space, pounding in Dr. Carter's ears, vibrating through their chest until it feels like their very soul might shatter. Every step is a battle, the floor tilting beneath their feet, the air alive with chaos. Dr. Carter dodges a falling beam, its jagged edge crashing inches from their path, sending up a cloud of dust that stings their lungs. Sparks dance in the corners of their vision, fleeting bursts of light against the growing dark. As the vault's machinery groans in protest, the roar of the hum drowns out the Syndicate's shouts, their voices swallowed by the tempest they can't control. Dr. Carter's hands scrape against the walls, searching, until their fingers find the cold rungs of a ladder rising into the shadows, a lifeline. A chance to escape the madness unfolding below. They climb fast, muscles burning, the ladder trembling beneath their grip as the vault convulses. The roar follows, chasing them upward, a beast of sound and fury that refuses to let go. With a final heave, Dr. Carter bursts through the hatch, tumbling out into the desert night. The air hits them like a slap, cool and vast, laced with the faint scent of sand and stars. They roll to their knees, gasping, as the hatch behind them glows an eerie blue, the light pulsing once, twice, then fading into a sudden, suffocating dark. The Syndicate's shouts echo faintly from below, growing distant, swallowed by the depths they can no longer reach. Dr. Carter staggers to their feet, the desert stretching out silent and endless under a sky pricked with countless lights. The roar of the vault is gone, replaced by a stillness that feels heavier than it should, a quiet that presses down like the calm before a storm too vast to name. The danger hasn't ended, it's only shifted. Slipping into the shadows of the night, something massive has begun, a chain of events tied to that fractured orb and the power it unleashed. Dr. Carter's chest tightens, their mind racing with one unshakable truth: whatever stirred in that vault, whatever the Watchers left behind, it's awake now, and it's far from finished. Hours slip by like shadows fleeing the dawn, and Dr. Alex Carter finds refuge in a forgotten speck of a town carved into the desert's edge. The streets are narrow, lined with crumbling adobe walls that lean under the weight of time. And the air carries the dry, gritty taste of sand. They hole up in a dusty motel room, its faded curtains swaying faintly in a breeze that sneaks through cracked windows. Dr. Carter hunches over a battered laptop, its screen casting a pale, ghostly glow across their face. Fingers fly across the keys, uploading every fragment of the truth they've uncovered, grainy photos of the pyramid's carvings, shaky videos of the pulsing orb, every scrap of evidence that whispers of the Watchers. Each file sent is a defiance, a spark flung into the dark to ignite a world still sleeping. The room is a tomb of silence, broken only by the faint clicks of the keyboard and the hum, that relentless, otherworldly hum that has followed them from the pyramid's depths. It's louder now, no longer a whisper but a force, rattling the windows in their frames, shaking the dust from the ceiling in faint, drifting clouds. The sound weaves through the walls, a living thread of energy that seems to press closer with every passing second. As if drawn by the secrets spilling from the laptop, Dr. Carter's hands falter for a moment, their breath catching as the hum grows into a low, resonant growl, a voice from beyond the stars, stirring the stillness with an urgency that chills their blood. The upload bar creeps toward completion, a thin line of hope against the gathering dark. But just as the final file sends, a flash of light cuts through the curtains, sharp and sudden. Like the slash of a blade, headlights pierce the night outside, their beams slicing across the room as black SUVs roll into the town. Swift and silent as phantoms, the Syndicate has arrived, their presence a cold weight that settles over the motel like a shroud. Dr. Carter snaps the laptop shut, heart pounding, and grabs it tight. They slip toward the back door, moving fast but quiet, the floorboards creaking faintly beneath their boots as if reluctant to let them go. Outside, the desert night swallows them whole, the air cool and vast, laced with the scent of ancient earth. Dr. Carter leaps into the Jeep, the engine roaring to life with a snarl that breaks the stillness. They peel out, tires spitting sand in wild arcs, the wind whipping around them as they plunge deeper into the dunes. The headlights of the Syndicate fade into the distance, swallowed by the dark, but their threat lingers, a hunter's promise carried on the breeze. The hum follows, a companion now, vibrating through the Jeep's frame, threading through the night like a signal too vast to silence. Miles stretch between Dr. Carter and the town, the desert unfolding in endless waves under a sky heavy with stars. They grip the wheel, eyes darting to the radio as it crackles to life, static spitting and hissing like a fire struggling to catch. Then a voice breaks through, a news report, clipped and urgent, filtering through the noise. It speaks of strange signals rippling across the globe, lights flickering in the heavens, patterns no one can explain. Some call it solar flares, a trick of the sun's restless dance. Others dismiss it as nothing, a glitch in the machines. But Dr. Carter's grip tightens, their pulse quickening with a truth that cuts deeper than any theory. It's the Watchers, reaching out from the void, their call echoing across the world at last. The Jeep slows, the engine's growl fading into the hum that now fills the night, a sound no longer confined to Dr. Carter alone, but alive in the air, the sand, the stars above. The desert stretches silent and eternal, its secrets spilling free, carried on waves of static to ears that may never understand. The Syndicate's pursuit lingers behind, a shadow yet to close its grasp. But the truth is out now, loosed into the world like a bird freed from a cage. Dr. Carter stares into the dark, the hum a constant companion, a reminder that this is no ending, only a beginning, a warning whispered from the heavens, waiting for the world to hear. Dr. Alex Carter brings the Jeep to a halt atop a lonely dune, its tires sinking into the cool, whispering sand as the engine's rumble fades into the night. The desert stretches out around them, vast and unbroken, a sea of shadows beneath a sky that feels too close, too alive. They step from the vehicle, boots crunching faintly against the grains, and lift their gaze upward. The stars gleam with an unnatural clarity, their light sharp and cold, piercing through the dark like needles threading a cosmic tapestry. Dr. Carter stands alone, a solitary figure dwarfed by the endless expanse, their breath shallow as they watch the heavens begin to shift. The stars are no longer still. They move, slowly at first, then with purpose, realigning into patterns etched deep in Dr. Carter's memory. Patterns carved into the pyramid's hidden chamber. Orion blazes above, its belt of 3 stars burning brighter than ever, a beacon pulsing with a glow that seems to hum in silence. The constellation stands out, bold and unyielding, mirroring the ancient symbols that spoke of the Watcher's return. The air grows heavy, thick with a weight that presses down on the desert. A silence so profound it feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something vast to break free from the void. Then, the hum, that relentless echo of the orb, the vault, the chase, stops. It vanishes as suddenly as a candle snuffed out, leaving behind a quiet so deep it rings in Dr. Carter's ears. The desert trembles faintly beneath their feet, a shiver running through the sand as if the earth itself senses what's coming. The silence hangs, dense and foreboding, a curtain drawn before a revelation too great to fathom. Dr. Carter's pulse quickens, their eyes locked on the sky, where the stars begin to flicker, not with the twinkle of distant suns, but with a rhythm, a purpose that defies nature. Lights emerge, faint at first, blinking into existence among the constellations. They're not stars, they're too steady, too deliberate, growing larger as they descend from the heavens. Massive shapes take form, dark and silent, their outlines swallowing the light around them. Ships, enormous, towering vessels, drift downward, their hulls black as the space between stars. Smooth and seamless, as if forged from a single, unknowable will. They move without sound, a fleet of shadows gliding through the night, their presence a weight that bends the air itself. The desert reflects their faint glow, the sand shimmering with an eerie sheen, as if bowing to masters long absent. Dr. Carter stands frozen, their body rooted to the dune, eyes wide with a mix of awe and dread. The Watchers have returned, their arrival a fulfillment of the carving's ancient promise. The ships hover, suspended above the desert, their forms vast and inscrutable, monoliths of darkness against the star-strewn sky. No engines roar, no voices call, they simply exist, their purpose cloaked in a silence that speaks louder than any storm. The ground beneath trembles again, a low, resonant pulse that ripples through the sand, as if the earth itself greets, or fears, these visitors from beyond. The truth Dr. Carter fought to share is out there now, sent into the world through flickering screens and static waves. A desperate cry against the tide of ignorance. But as the ships linger, their shadows stretching long across the dunes, a question gnaws at the edges of their mind. Will anyone believe it in time? The desert holds its breath, the air thick with the weight of the unknown. The Watchers' gaze, unseen but felt, sweeps over the land, their intent a mystery carved in the dark. Is this judgment, a reckoning foretold in stone? Or the dawn of something new? A chapter humanity was never meant to read? The ships hang there, motionless yet alive, their presence a riddle wrapped in the night. The stars above fade behind their bulk, Orion's light dimming as if yielding to a greater power. Dr. Carter remains still, a lone witness to the opening of the sky, the desert trembling beneath them like a heartbeat quickening in fear or anticipation. The story pauses here, suspended in the vast, unanswering dark, leaving a question to echo through the silence. Is this the end of all we know? Or merely the beginning of something too vast to grasp? The Watchers watch, and the world waits.